Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So Tonic Blooms has done it again. They have sent me another stunning bouquet that I get to paint. I'm going to be breaking down 5 different flowers in here for you, how to paint them, and then how to put it all together to create a beautiful summer bouquet. So if you're in the Greater Toronto area, I highly suggest you check them out and send a beautiful bouquet to someone you love, because I'm telling you now, no one will be disappointed accepting something as gorgeous as this. So let's jump right into our painting and get started. Okay, so to start, I'm gonna go through my materials. For practicing each individual flower, I'm just using my Paul Rubens 100% cotton hot pressed watercolor sketchbook. I have my Winsor & Newton professional watercolors in my palette, my water jars, and then I also have my Princeton snap brushes. I have a size 12, a size 6, size 2, and a size 2/0. I don't know which ones I'm gonna be using yet, just because I'm working on a smaller area for this. And I'll just let you know as we go along. My paper towel, water, and we're ready to go. Okay, so first I'm gonna break down some key flowers in my sketchbook to show you before we jump into painting the bouquet. So I just wanted to show you how to paint some individual flowers first. So the first flower that I wanna show you is this ranunculus, which I'm so obsessed with. This is a flower I actually haven't seen in person, so I'm kind of obsessed. And it's white, so it's a little difficult to paint, but I'm gonna try and show you. The next one we're gonna paint, I don't know what it's called, but it's some sort of like really cute yellow filler, which I love just for extra texture in the bouquet. I'm gonna show you how to paint this bright yellow garden rose, which is stunning. And then this yellow, which I'm pretty sure is a freesia. They're so bright, summery. And then last but not least, this peach kind of antique-y colored rose. Okay, so there are more and different flowers in the bouquet, but I just wanted to pick out a few key flowers that I want to include in my bouquet. Because there are so many different types, I didn't want to have to paint everything. It gets a little overwhelming that way, so we're just gonna pick out those 5 key floral pieces. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna paint is this antique colored rose. And if you look at it, it just has these stunning colors. And it's not like a bright peach. Like I said, it's like an antique kind of rusty color rose. So let's color match this first. I'm gonna grab a scrap piece of watercolor paper first to do this. And color matching is like one of my favorite things. So I already have a peach mix right here. And for that, I used cadmium yellow and permanent rose. Okay, and as you see, it's really quite vibrant when you do those. And you really want it a little bit more rusty. So if you want to tone a color down, you're gonna pick, or mute a tone, you want to pick the contrasting color to that. So peach is kind of like on the reddish side. I wanted a bit more pink. It's on the reddish side. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of green, just whatever green I have. So I have sap green here, and I'm just going to add it there. And it immediately kind of tones it down, mutes that peach. So it's a little bit more rusty. And there you have it. Okay. And then there's other little colors in there too. We're not going to get too specific, but you know, you can add a little bit more yellow to it. Like that. A little bit more green if you want. Okay. It has all these different kind of tones in this flower, and then even a little bit more pink for some parts. Okay. So there's kind of like our color matching for this rose. And for the shape, we've done roses many times before. Sorry, it's hard to keep the rose in frame while we do this, but I'll kind of try. Okay. So it's a tightly bound rose. So I'm just going to start with this color here, and we're going to do small little curves like this. And we're just practicing right now. So small little C curves like that. Okay, with a lightish wash, lightish. So not going full in with color yet. I'm gonna even take some off, and I'm just gonna do some curves around it. Okay, leaving little bits of white space. And this rose isn't as big as the garden rose, so I'm gonna keep it quite small, like that, okay? And then you can go back in with your color, so we can even mix a bit more, bit of yellow, bit of permanent rose, and then I'm gonna grab a little bit of that green to mute it. Maybe a bit more yellow. Just play around. And I'm gonna tap the inside of that rose. Okay, just like that. And then if you wanted to add kind of that dual tone, you know, you could add a bit more pink to some parts if you want. Totally up to you, like the edges, even just a little bit of green on its own. Okay, but there you go. There is your little rose. And remember, this is going to be in a bouquet, so we're not doing a side view or anything like that. If you wanted to do kind of like a side view, so let me just grab a light wash here. I would kind of do like a petal coming from the bottom here. Sorry, I'm doing this quite small because I want to make sure I can get all the flowers in. And then I would do like another little petal on this side, petal on this side, leaving white space in between the petals, and then I just do some little curves like that, like around the top. It's kind of messy, it's not perfect, but that's why I usually do the top down version like that. And then I would go back in with some darker color, even on these, just add a little bit inside, maybe a bit of yellow in there, and then maybe a little bit of pink. It's nice when you make it kind of like multi-toned. And then I'd grab a little bit green down here, like that, maybe a little bit up there, and there you go. That would be kind of like a side view. I'm making it very small though, okay? I'm not gonna overbear my page with it. So yeah, those are like just simple ways to do it and to kind of color match this color. Okay, so the next one we're gonna do is this garden rose. I actually dropped it, it broke. Luckily I have a few others in the bouquet. I feel awful. But yeah, so we're doing this garden rose. I'm a mess today, let's be honest. And for this, I'm just gonna use some straight cadmium yellow. Look how bright that is. Now this is a bit more vibrant than this, so I'm gonna water it down. And I'm just gonna start doing some, let's do some swirly kind of centers. Just some C curves, just swirling it around with our yellow. I'm gonna add some more water to my brush, make some bigger swirly strokes. Okay, always default to that C curve petal shape. Sorry if the light is kind of bouncing off that wet water. It's a little hard to see. I will go in a bit darker, but you're just doing these like C curves around. Okay. You can make it nice and big. I always keep adding more because I have a little bit of pigment on my brush and I just keep dipping my brush in water. And I'm not using a large brush. I'm using a size 6 right now, so I don't worry about adding too much water. If I was using a size 12, I wouldn't keep dipping it in. But because I'm using a smaller brush, I can control the water a bit more. Now I'm gonna go back in with my yellow, and I'm just gonna start tapping some of those C curves around, like that, because I want some of those light tones and then some of the more bright, vibrant tones. And then, if you look at the shadows in here, it's a little bit more of an orange. So I'm gonna grab some cadmium orange. If you don't have cadmium orange, you can use cadmium red and mix it with a bit of yellow. And I'm gonna tap it more in towards the center because that's where the shadows would be. And then going outward a little bit. I actually might grab a little bit of cadmium red. It's a bit darker, especially for the center. And I'm just going around like that. Okay, I can even wash off my brush and make those strokes around the edges a bit thicker, like that, okay? So just make sure you leave little bits of white space to kind of separate those petals a bit. All right, so there is our big garden rose that I broke. I'm so sad. Okay, our next one, let's do this freesia. I love freesia. They're so beautiful. Okay, so same kind of bright yellow color. I'm gonna grab some pigment on my brush, water it down a bit. And I'm gonna start off with this largest flower. And I'm gonna do just these kind of like long, almost like leaf-shaped petals. So 1, 2, and then 1 kind of behind, like inside. Remember, this is very loose, so don't worry too much about being perfect. Okay, and you can even have 1 kind of coming down the side here. If you want it like flopping over a bit. Like that, with a little bit of a light wash, okay? And it kind of has this bell shape at the bottom. And I leave little bits of white space too, just to kind of separate those petals. Then I can go back in with some more color and really tap in, grab a bit more yellow, that base of that one. Okay, so always start with a lighter wash and then you can go back in with that vibrant color to really kind of separate those petals a bit more. Okay, let's do another one over here, same kind of thing, a bit smaller though, a bit more tightly bound together. Okay, remember you're gonna have to connect it through a stem, so just kind of have an idea of where you're placing that stem afterwards. Okay, 1, 2, 3. This one's a little bit more tight, so we're not having a petal drop down. Excuse me. Grab some more color at the base. Okay, let's do another one back here. Again, it's more of a bud shape because the closer you get to the top, the more of this bud shape you kind of see. The ones on the bottoms bloom first. Grab some like that. There we go. Okay, so we're just gonna do 3 flowers on this one. I think this is a freesia, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my sap green and I'm gonna go in at the bottom here. I'm just gonna do a little stem. The stem's gonna go up right through to the top like this, just a little bit, just have a kind of like a guide. And then you're going to add little bits kind of encasing those flowers there, like that. Have it branch off there. And I like when it touches the petals. I like that color bleed. Have one coming off on this side. We'll have one coming off on this side. Okay, one coming off on this side. And I'm getting a little bit lighter with my buds too. You can even add a little bit of yellow to your green for some of those buds. Like that. Like that. Okay, and then what I like to do with these ones is I'll go back in with some darker green. So I have this perline green color, and I'm going to tap the base of those buds, and it just adds a little something extra. Okay, and you can even add a little bit of yellow to some of those green buds too. And there you go. There is your freesia. Okay, now I'm going to flip around my book here and do some more. Yeah, it's gonna be upside down, but that's fine. Okay, so let's do our ranunculus, which I'm obsessed with. The petals keep falling off. It's all good. Okay, so our ranunculus is white. I'm just gonna turn my palette around because with this white, I am going to kind of use a gray tone. So I have this Payne's Gray in my palette already. I'm gonna use my my other water. And so I'm just gonna take the slightest little wash of this. Just adding water to like a little bit of it. Okay? Just for a tiny bit of a gray color. And I'm gonna start off with the small inside, and I'm just gonna kind of go around with our little curves, really nice and tight, like that. Okay, and that's gonna be a bit of a green. And then I'm gonna get slightly bigger with my curves. Like this. I know it's hard to see, I'm sorry, I know it's hard with white colored things. That's why I'm trying to make it a bit more gray. And I'm just doing kind of like, almost like semicircles. These C curves are a bit more rounder. They're not as like with our roses, they're a bit more kind of flatter. These ones are going to have a bit more of an arch, but really kind of fill. You don't want a huge white space in between petals. So you got to kind of fill it in too. Okay. And I'm really just trying to go in with water almost right now. And then you get bigger as you go out. I'm really just being so loose with it. Try not to be perfect. Okay. Okay. And I'm just now doing a little bit flatter curves. Okay, closer to the center, they're shorter and a little bit more higher of an arch. They're a little bit flatter as we go around the edge. Okay, so I know it's really hard to see. So now I'm gonna grab a bit more, I can even add a bit of green in there too. A bit more color, water it down, and I'm just gonna start dropping it in, just going around, dropping in some of that color. And then for the center, I want that yellowish green. So I'm just gonna tap a little bit more yellow in there. Really get that yellowy green going in the center. Like that. Okay. And I know this is so hard to see, and it's so hard to see with the glare of the lights. Wonder if, just so you can see it, I don't know if you can see that a little bit better. Okay. And I wouldn't actually do it this dark naturally. I'm just trying to make sure you guys can see a bit more. I'll go a bit darker, Actually, let's get a little bit of black gray, watering it down. Let me see if I can turn this light off for a second just so you can see a bit better maybe. I don't know if that's better or worse. We'll see. Like that, okay? Now this is definitely a lot darker than I would usually do. So did I do it on the side? Yeah, so I did one before I did this tutorial. This one's a lot lighter, but I just wanted to do a little bit darker to show you. I would use a lot less pigment and more water, okay? Because especially when you put this in a bouquet, you'll have some greenery around it, which will make that white pop. Okay, so I'm gonna put my lights back on. And we are going to do the last one, which is these like really cute yellow fillers. So I'm gonna grab some cadmium yellow. I know you probably can't, it's out of frame, you can't really see, but it's just plain cadmium yellow. And I'm gonna start off by doing just some little dots like this. Just random, we're keeping it simple. Using the tip of your brush. Again, I'm using my size 6. I've been using my size 6 this whole time. Okay. Okay. Then I'm gonna grab my smaller brush for this. And I dropped it, it's all good. And I'm gonna grab some green. So this is the size 2/0, so it's like a -2 almost. And I'm going to do one initial stem for each of these little bunches. And then I'm gonna have little tiny stems going to little parts of these yellow flowers, okay? And this is just a filler, so don't worry too much about, you know, making it perfect. It's just a little bit of something to add texture to your painting. And I like when the green bleeds into these little yellow flowers, so try and keep it wet, not too wet. And that's also why I'm using a really small brush for the stem, because it carries less water, less paint, less chance of the green really bleeding into the yellow and kind of taking over. Like that, okay? Little slight bits, and then you can even have little stems here, and we can add a little bit more yellow. like that. You can add a little bit of yellow dots. It's very simple. Okay, so there's a filler. It's a lot smaller than this one right here. You can even do some more, there's like a little bit of leaves and greenery coming off, so you can just, I might use a bigger brush for this because again, it doesn't carry too much water or color, so let's use my size 2. Get some leaves going. Just using the shape of your brush really, like that. And you can always go in with a bit darker green too and just tap some of the bottom of those leaves and it just adds a bit more depth, like that. Okay, so there's your filler. And then let's just quickly talk about leaves for our bouquet. There are some big leaves, some smaller leaves. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but with this bouquet, it looks like there's 2 kind of different leaves. So we have, let me just get my sap green here. We have these really nice long leaves, and you're just going to use the shape of your brush. You're going to go light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and you just drag it down longer. And then we're just doing the same kind of thing, connecting it like that. And they're kind of in bunches. So let's do another one over here. Okay, you're just dragging it out a bit longer. Okay, and then I would go back in with some more color, add a bit of darkness, add some darker green, maybe to the stems a bit, like that. Okay, so there's those kind of leaves, and then there's these other ones that are really cute. I'm gonna grab a little bit of burnt umber for the stem, and here, we're just gonna kind of do it sideways. I'm gonna do the stem really, really thin. And then they have these green leaves that are kind of a little bit jagged. Just kind of move your brush jaggedly and they just come right off the leaves. The stem, I mean, like this. Okay, nice jagged little leaves. Really thin where they touch the stem. So almost like just like a little line. Like that. I'm gonna go back in, grab some more color. Darker towards where the stem is. Like that, just add a bit of depth. You can even add a little bit of brown in there. Whatever you like. But yeah, you can do that. Okay, so there are our individual flowers, and now we're gonna throw it all together in a bouquet. Okay, so for my bouquet, we are going to be using Arches cold press watercolor paper. I'm probably gonna be using my bigger brush, my size 12, just because I'm working on a bigger surface, as well as my size 6. Same paints, water. As you can see here, my water's still kind of dirty, but I have yellow and green, so I don't mix them. I don't need to change them right now. And we're ready to go. Okay. So I think I'm gonna start off with the garden rose because it is the biggest and kind of the most prominent part in this bouquet. So I'm just gonna grab my cadmium yellow, water it down a bit, and we're doing, I always start kind of not right in the center, just slightly off center. So we're gonna start by doing those squiggly little center lines for our garden rose, like that. And then slowly start to make those squiggles a bit bigger, thicker, little C curves like that. And again, we're using a watered down cadmium yellow, so we can go back in with some brighter, more vibrant yellow, like that, okay? Now let's grab some more yellow, start at the center, like that. Then you can just do some little kind of dropping in the color around. Grab some more yellow if you like. Especially right in the center, okay? And then just wash and dry off my brush, and I'm gonna grab a little bit of that cadmium red, just a little bit in the center. So it's kind of like a deep orange, like that, okay? And then I think I'm gonna do my ranunculus, okay? So remember it's white. I'm gonna grab some of this really, really light grayish color, and we're gonna start by doing that little center. So again, see curves, nice and tight towards the center. We're gonna drop a little bit of green in there after. And then these strokes, remember, just are slightly shorter, more, not curvier, they have a higher arch, okay? And then as you get closer to the outside, they're a bit flatter, okay? And I actually want this to blend into, or have a bleed into that yellow while it's still wet. It's just my preference style of what I like. Oh my gosh, I don't know if you just heard my stomach. Okay, like that. I'm gonna go back in with a bit more gray. Just really kind of tight little curves. Okay, like that. Then if you want, grab your smaller brush to add some green. I'm gonna take a bit of green here and add it to this yellow to get a really nice little limey yellow, just for the center, like that, okay? Maybe even a little bit of yellow for our ranunculus. Okay, and you can see there's a little bit of a color bleed right there. Okay, and now I'm going to do our peachy colored rose. So I already have the color still here. I might add a bit more green. Okay, and I'm gonna, again, start off with the same kind of curve pattern. I like when it bleeds. These ones have longer curves, like that. It's bleeding into our ranunculus and our garden rose here. And I wanna make this one a bit smaller. Now I'm gonna go back in with some darker color, like so. And there you go. And before those dry, I want to add a little bit of green in between them. So I'm just going to grab my sap green, whatever color I have here, maybe a little bit of orange to my green just to make it a bit more neutral. I'm going to add just a little bit of green in between those flowers. Just a little bit of greenery so it separates them a bit. Like that. While they're still wet, so you can have that color bleed. A little bit of darker green too. Like that. Okay. Then we can start working on more things around. So we have garden rose, regular like antique rose, ranunculus. Let's do a freesia. And I'm gonna have it over here. I wonder if this is still wet. Okay, the ranunculus has dried. Oh well. Do our petals like this. For the one that's on the bottom, that's the most open. Like that. Let's do another one here. This is going to kind of go off to the side a bit. And then another one over here. Go back in with our bright color for the base of the freesia. Okay, maybe even a little bit of orange for a little bit extra depth. Okay, I'm gonna grab my green, tap the bottom of those little freesia buds. Come up here. Make those buds a little bit lighter. Like that. Okay. Grab a little bit of that dark green. Throw it in there like like that. And then I think I'm gonna wanna do maybe some of those little yellow fillers. Actually, I think I'm gonna do another one of those peach roses just to balance it out a bit. Just a small one, okay? I'm using my smaller brush for that. I'm gonna have it bleed into that freesia bit and that little piece of greenery. Like that. Grab some more color, a little bit of green. Tap it in that center. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I think we should do maybe some more white ranunculus. Maybe we'll just do like the side of one over here. So we're just gonna do some little, or any kind of white floral. So I'm just gonna do some little curves with this gray. And I'm not following the actual bouquet, like where placement of things are. I'm just kind of throwing all of these things that I've kind of taken and learned from each flower and just putting them together. Okay, grab up a little bit of that green. Like that. Okay, and then I think I'm gonna just add some greenery over here while I can. So I'm gonna just do and this doesn't have to be the leaves that we practiced. You can do any kind of greenery, any kind of leaves that you want. I like a little bit of orange in my leaves. Actually, I might even grab a bit of burnt umber to go up that stem. Like that. Okay. So there we go. Let's do some greenery over, actually, let's do one of those little filler things on this side. So I'm gonna grab my yellow and I'm gonna start doing those small little dots. Small dots. Like that. Grab my small little tiny brush, grab some of that green. I'm gonna do the initial stems first that go right through, and then branching off those little stems is more little stems that connect. Like that. Okay, and then you can do little tiny stems off of those, just, and you can also do your bigger leaves coming off of those stems. Might even have some coming up behind here. Like that, grab a bit of darker green. Like that. Okay. Okay, so now I think I might do another little ranunculus kind of bit over here. Just small little ones, just to kind of give some light and airiness, like white flowers to some areas. Like that. Grab our little green, this yellow, like that. And I think I'm gonna fill the rest of that up with greenery. I just want a little bit of a color bleed over here, so I'm just gonna do it while this ranunculus is still wet. Like that. Okay. And then I think, I'm gonna add another garden rose. Sorry, I'm just kind of talking as I go. Okay, and it's gonna be behind this ranunculus, so we're just gonna do kind of like half. Squiggles, squiggles, squiggles. And again, I'm making a smaller one, so I'm using my size 6 brush. Keep dunking it in the water to get a lighter wash of that yellow as we go out. Like that. Go back in with our bright yellow, a little bit of that orange. Like so. I think I'm gonna do some more fillers over here, right in here. And I'm just kind of placing it wherever you think could use a bit of texture, where, you know, places look a little holy. Now, if you want to add like the stems, you can definitely do that too. I usually don't, but maybe we will do that for this one. I think we're gonna add stems to this bouquet. I think we're gonna do it. I know, I seem a little, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, so I think we're gonna do that. I'm gonna pretend that it's like a bouquet like this, and we'll have stems kind of coming down. Just pretend that you know where they're coming from. Okay, and we can add more flowers too, to kind of even it out. Okay, it looks a little lopsided and weird, but that's because we're gonna add greenery. I just kind of want to add these stems and have an idea of where things are being placed. Got a darker stem in there. Okay, and then yeah, we need to add something on this side. So maybe even another little garden rose or something. Or not garden rose, the peachy kind of rose. Okay. And now that I think we have like where I want all of our florals, we're gonna start adding the greenery. I'm gonna use my bigger brush for this just so I can add some bigger leaves to start. Grab my sap green, and I'm gonna do some of those bigger leaves over here to add some space or fill up some space like that. Grab a bit of darkness like that. Okay, let's add some of those big ones over here. I think I want to add a bit of brown to my green. I want to make it a bit more earthy. Yeah. So you can always add brown to your green or orange to your green to kind of mute it if it's like a really bright green color and you're not too fond of it. I'm actually going to take a little bit of yellow, get a little bit of a color bleed happening. Like that. Okay. Actually going to take up some of that color. Okay. I'm going to do some smaller leaves now. So maybe just, let's do a stem here. More rounded leaves. Okay, you can do some over here. Like that. Some up here. Very kind of messily too, right? Like I'm not taking my time and making it perfect or anything. Grab some darkness, tap the base of those. Like that. This one's a little too dark there. That. And then I'm going to have some greenery coming down here. So I'm back to my size 6 brush, and I'm just going to have some greenery coming down, filling in down here. You can bring some of those stems down. And then the last thing I usually tend to add are tiny, smaller greenery fillers. So let me just take this one out. I'll take my size 6 brush, grab some green, maybe some darker green because I like to add a bit of contrast. And I'll just start doing some tiny little greenery fillers. So just tapping my brush, making like some stems, and then tapping the tip of my brush to get these little tiny leaves. And it just adds a bit of contrast in size and color with the darkness. You can even do that with like little yellow buds too if you wanted to. I don't like this one. It's a bit too dark for me and thick. There we go. And just kind of filling it in wherever you think could use those little bits. Like that. Okay, and there you go. There is your beautiful yellow summery bouquet. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram and Facebook for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.